but from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." Eventually, however, Andrew came to believe that fundamental change could not come from the courtroom. It must come from the ballot box. He helped to establish the Free Soil Party and the Republican Party in Massachusetts, and when elected governor relied on his abolitionist fervor to lead his state through the Civil War. In pressing for emancipation, as well as for African American enlistment and equal pay in the Union ranks, he advanced the nation's racial progress. In this way, he reflected Abraham Lincoln's belief that Americans must think anew and act anew about slavery and emancipation. We must disenthrall ourselves from the past. We must rise with the occasion. Andrew had spent his life rising with the occasion, as his contemporaries, including Lincoln, knew well. A Republican abolitionist, he won 5 successive gubernatorial elections by historic margins, which was a monumental achievement. In his view, slavery had brought on the South's rebellion. Thus, the conflict must end the institution. From the beginning, he saw the crisis as an opportunity to advance African American status in a reunified nation dedicated to freedom for all. Neither the Union nor the Constitution could remain the same, he believed. He hoped that the war would correct the errors of previous generations and ensure a future free from shackles and racial prejudice, though he recognized that reversing decades of federal policy would be a Herculean endeavor. With Lincoln, he focused on combining military and legal emancipation in Union-occupied territory, an approach that ultimately culminated in passage of the 13th Amendment. Tragically, the Commonwealth's war governor died a century before the nation could realize his vision of racial equality. For several decades after his death, commemorative gatherings honoring the war governors, the African American regiments and Union veterans, and the dead kept Andrew's significance alive. As years passed, however, this popular and beloved Bostonian faded into obscurity. Henry Greenleaf Pearson, a Portland, Maine native and Harvard graduate who taught English composition at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, brought Andrew into the light of day in 1904 with the publication of The Life of John A. Andrew, Governor of Massachusetts, 1861 through 1865. Percy Bicknell reviewed it for The Dial, a semi-monthly journal of literary criticism, discussion, and information, noting that, in the rather surprising lack of any previous biography of Andrew, Mr. Pearson's work will be welcomed as supplying a want and as probably the final and authoritative life of Massachusetts' famous war governor. Though he had been highly esteemed in his time, later historians apparently lost sight of him. Beyond a brief acknowledgment that he had raised African American regiments for the Union Army, his name now hardly registers in the nation's master narrative. One exception is his brief but significant appearance in the 1989 award-winning movie Glory, about the famed 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, based on Peter Burchard's novel One Gallant Rush, 1965, and Lincoln Kirstein's long essay Lay This Laurel, 1973. Another is Russell Duncan's Blue-Eyed Child of Fortune, the Civil War Letters of Robert Gould Shaw, 1992, which shed significant light on the relationship between Shaw and Andrew. Still, the governor's legacy remains in the scholarly attic. In 2007, Governor Deval Patrick referenced to Andrew when he became the first black person to ascend to Massachusetts' highest state office. The Commonwealth's governors customarily hang a former governor's portrait in their chambers, someone from whom to draw inspiration. "I chose the portrait of Governor John Andrew," he said in his State of the Commonwealth address, "who came to office just before the outbreak of the Civil War, and who, among other things, gave freed black men their first opportunity to serve their country as soldiers." It was not a popular thing for Governor Andrew to do, or for legislators.